This meeting and all other meetings of the committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes of the citizenry. May be aware of the time, place, and agenda of the meeting. Roll call.
Gage,
Here.
Gunderson,
Here.
and Nadowski, I believe, is on his way.
Approved the minutes of October 10th, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 10th, 2016.
So second it. Citizens
You
appearance.
still gotta say all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizens appearance. That and Don. Engineer report.
On the wastewater treatment plant construction update, Myron did submit a pay request. Is that on the,
Did not. We're holding.
oh, you're holding on that?
Yep,
Okay.
we're holding for clarification on the pump issue.
Okay.
So there is no pay request.
Okay. Otherwise, the closeout for the treatment plant is in process. There's one thing with the the blowers that they're clarifying, and they should be getting back to us on that, and that project is very, very close to being closed out. So the treatment plant should be closed up relatively quick here. Wastewater treatment plant, City Hall certified survey map update. For the wastewater treatment plant, we finally got the final easement from Weyauwega. Greg has that inserted into the certified survey map, and as part of the process with the certified survey map, he has to put the iron pipes in the ground. So he's going to be out here tomorrow, pounding them into the ground for the treatment plant and for City Hall. City Hall, all we're waiting on is the transfer of land. They transferred the land off the back corner. It's just the recording data from the courthouse needs to go on to the CSM, and that one will be done too. So the plan work and all that's done. It's just a matter of getting them pounded into the ground, and then whatever Greg has to do, if he has to monument them a little differently, he notes that on the certified survey map, and then that will be done. So he'll be out here tomorrow taking care of that work. Capital improvement plan update after the last meeting. Patrick and I reviewed it and we put it together. Now, did you get them a copy of that one, or
No, it's not. I don't have it in the packet.
Okay. It was just some of the items that we talked about last meeting, and then Don and I and Patrick met, moved a few things around to adjust the CIP, the capital improvement planning for next year. That work, what we'll do is a lot of that stuff you'll take into consideration again next June. Patrick and I are going to take a little harder look at all of the projects that have been on the CIP that didn't get done, and move them up if we need to, leave them off if we don't, and then update and allocate the money as such. It didn't change a whole lot from the last one that we had, all of us had looked at. I just finalized it with some of the improvements we had. On the ferret pump proposal, you have a copy of the memo in the packet as well as the email from George.
Yes.
Okay, what it was the memo. George Thompson from our office looked at the quotes that were provided at the last meeting, and after he looked at them, he talked with Don, had a couple questions on some of the things that were proposed, and then as we were at that meeting, we talked a little bit about we wanted to make sure we were talking apples to apples on both of the quotes. So George looked at them, asked for some revised quotes, asked for them to include a couple things into their cost, and a couple of things that they didn't include, we included as a sidebar that needs to be taken care of in order to make this thing function. So at the last meeting, you had some different vendors' proposals that weren't apples to apples because they didn't have them. George and Don were able to work through it and get them apples to apples so you can see them side by side. And they are, the summary is in that memo on the second page. Now, what I also asked George to do in the email, just so it was clarified for you when you guys are reviewing this, is Energetics proposed a couple of other alternative items, and I just want George to answer why those were in or out, if they're in or out, and why not. And just so when you guys are looking at it, you know, as close to apples as we can get, we did. And that's where the cost proposal comes up. There's a couple small things, electrical and miscellaneous parts. William Reed, they have, there was two things they had to, one was the fiberglass tank supplier has to, he was gonna just get, Don's gonna get a local vendor to just do a little bit of fiberglass work around the top of your tank, to put a flange on it so that we can put the level sensor inside the tank. And then if there's, when they get in there and do the work, if there's any minor piping or a little different electrical work that needs to be done at the treatment plant, we have allocated money for those. So William Reed and Energetics, two proposals are there. And then also we secured a quote from Weyauwega, which is the vendor that did all the work on the SCADA system for the treatment plant upgrades, for them to include this ferric chloride pumps into the SCADA system for the entire treatment plant, so it's all tied together. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer them, or Don can answer them.
Yeah, how come the LWL was so much cheaper than the other two?
LWL is all they're providing is a SCADA system.
That's our alarm system. That's
Okay,
tied into
that's all
everything.
they're doing.
LWL is doing the work.
$4,500 just for that.
That's
No
all it
matter
is.
who we pick, LWL is gonna do the work to,
Okay.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to, your word escapes.
So-
Instrumentation and controls.
Integrate.
There you go, good word.
Right.
Okay.
So it takes everything there and ties it all into the computer. They were the vendors for the treatment plant, so it's all their equipment down there. So just by taking this ferric chloride pump and tying it into the operations of the entire treatment plant, that's what LWL is gonna do.
So that $4,500 is gonna be on top of
Yes, so if you look on the bottom of
William
the
Reed or
Energex.
Energins, yeah.
Yep, so the total cost with all that is about $16,600.
Yeah.
Yep. So
And
you,
it's $1,000 for the engineering for assistant for startup.
if there's any needed.
If there's
You know, it's, Don probably, you know, is probably, if everything goes smooth, probably won't need us to be there for
Yeah.
startup. Don will work right through it with the vendor.
Yeah. So William Reed would be the one everyone's proposal to,
Yes.
We've got that, so that handout that we have there on Don's summary, that's where Keith had asked at the last meeting, what all is left at the treatment plant that's gotta get addressed. So Don had put together a memo, we didn't price anything, I don't know if there's a whole lot on when these things need to be addressed, but it's an idea of what's out there. What hasn't been addressed by the treatment plant project, what didn't we pick up on our own, like the aeration basins, the belts and things like that that we did.
but this year's overdue.
Right, well, this one here, these pumps are 25 years old and their life on them is 20 years.
Yeah, you see you can't get parts for them.
Yeah, they've been
Obsolete
obsolete
now.
for several years already. We had somebody come and work on them and he told me he couldn't get parts for them. And luckily we had a few spare parts for them, but we can't get them anymore.
Well, they probably be a good thing to go ahead and do this now, huh? I'd make a motion to go with that William Reed, $12,050.
And then the LWL
LWL.
amount is acceptable as well. Okay.
Yeah, do you want those in two motions or just one?
We
Automatically.
can do it in one if you'd like, we just put
Okay.
the amount for each behind
Okay.
each name, if that's okay.
That's fine by me, I just want to
Okay.
make sure for you. Well, I'll second this motion then.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Discussion on possible action, John Deere tractor and broom lease.
This is it's a lease on a smaller tractor, usually we've gone with Caroline Implement, it's a 1025R, comes with a broom snow blower on it. We had purchased 2 years ago the fabric cab for it, so we own that. I think it's done wonders for us for sure. We've been able to go through, I think at the beginning of last year, we talked about being more efficient in cleaning up sidewalks if we needed to. And then we were looking at how many sidewalks could we get done. I think at the first snowfall, we got like 43 of them done, and it was in like an ungodly amount of time, which was really good. We do have an option potentially to purchase a unit like this, but as you lease it, you're able to get credit for your lease towards the purchase. I think it's probably a very good idea that we consider something like this in the next couple of months, potentially for a purchase, because you could put a mower, you could put a loader on it if you needed to. This is one of those pieces of equipment that for $18,000, if you bought it, you could use it year round in the parks. The broom, we could get gutters cleaned out a little bit better if we needed to. There's quite a bit you could do. For right now, though, what we'd be looking for is just approval to lease it again for this winter. And the cost on there, they had it by the hour, but it ends up being $3,800. And that comes, like I said, with the broom, with the snow blower.
In the deck's optional, or do you have a deck for it?
No, we don't. And we've only been leasing it in the winter, but it's got, just like John Deere, it's a little bit bigger tractor.
Yeah.
You can get attachments for
That
it.
would be the one you drive right up over the top of it.
Yep.
Snap her up and you got it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's something that we've got use for sure, but especially in the winter, it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah, that broom has been pretty awesome for doing sidewalks.
I think that broom has done wonders for them.
Oh, it has.
County just bought one for the courthouse, too, same thing, for the same reason.
So we'd be looking for approval on a lease. Like I said, we probably should continue talking about, because if we lease it every year at $3,800, I mean, you can get it for 4 months on a lease, or you can buy it outright and have it year round.
I think that's what I'm thinking about doing.
Yeah.
There you can write up the depreciation on it,
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming up with the cash is usually the biggest
Yeah.
hurdle in getting things like this, and for that amount, it's not an unreasonable amount, I don't think. You could throw a hard cab on it in the future if you wanted to, but that's, like I said, we got the fabric one for right now, it's been okay. It's been working out all right.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the John Deere tractor lease for $3,850.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Review of 2017 budget.
As it relates to public works, we'll take a look at the general expense. For public works, you know what? It is on a second attachment that came over to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
We'll pull it up here, we'll have it on your screens. It's in the packet for police and rec for tomorrow, but I've got the secondary sheet here. So what we're looking at here, in public works, I'm right on the edge of the page here, but we'll just go line by line through this, just talk about it. There's a couple of comments I think that came up last month with the weed control and things like that. So we have done a little bit of tweaking. A lot of the road aids and shared aids now have been finalized, so we did have to make a little bit of an adjustment. I think the shared road aid from the state went down about $1,400 on what we had anticipated it to do. So we basically just took the $1,400 out of contingency on the general line item, which is basically a miscellaneous type item. So under public works, what we're looking at here then is these line items. Machinery and equipment, we've had $4,800 set aside for that. A lot of that is repairs on the machines, and we've been in line that $4,800. We had some issues that first year here with the case. We had a couple issues that we had it in to get it fixed a couple extra times, or one extra time. But $4,800 seems to be okay there. One of the things that we can do with our new software, which we'll probably do starting in January, is our account numbers now have an extra 3 zeros on the very end. And so we could have general fund, public works, truck repairs, and then the next line item we could put in there is we could start to number the trucks as it relates to accounts. So rather than having to search through that account and then start to peel out, say, the water department truck or the police night car or something like that, we should be able to just code that right away, just run a report and it'll show you all the, similar to the report I think you had sent over on the chargers from the county,
Yeah.
where you can just have each vehicle
Yep. Show
better
their
numbered there, and then we can just hit, it's a lot easier for us to just hit a report rather than have to manually put it together.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that I think going into next year, we'll be able to put in a little bit more detail on what vehicles we're looking at spending that money on. The next item here is, usually it's garages and sheds. We've had miscellaneous repairs. The water bill for our garages, the water and sewer bills usually come out of that amount. $3,000 seems to be appropriate there. Street laborer, this is the general budget share of the 3 public works employees that we have. So we split it between water, sewer, and the general fund, which is more like the general streets, and some of the park work that's out of here too. What we're looking at here is, it's a little bit, it looks like it's a little bit of an increase, $2,000, but it's a little bit more appropriately spent here just because of the on-call time, the on-call pay. We've got overtime pay, things like that. That should be a good enough number that it should cover that line item. The next item down then is under Public Works Supervisor, that would be Don's general fund share. What we're starting to do is to track off of time cards where they're doing their work. In the past, we just kind of had some, and this is on both of these line items, we just would kind of pull out of the air and say, well, we think 25% of the time is in water, 40% of the time is in sewer. What we're starting to do is start to track more of when they fill out their time cards, they'll split out what section they're working in. So we're trying to more accurately capture that here, which is going to be more important, especially as we look at like a water rate study, because the PSC is going to want to make sure that the labor and the wages you have under the water department is what's actually being used there. So it looks like it's a little bit more of an increase here, but it's more in line with trying to get it squared away with what they're actually doing for their work. Under outside engineering, we had brought that down. The $5,000 has been, I think, an appropriate number because a lot of the costs we've had for engineering have been more along the line of projects. And when we've had the treatment plant, City Hall, the parking lots, the engineering gets posted to those projects. That's been a lot of where the cost has been. But this $5,000 usually covers like when We Energy sends in permits. Cedar or Thad's got to review that. There's a little bit of time on that. The consultative agreement that we've had for their general services, I feel like that's an appropriate number. Goes down to street maintenance then. You will see here that it appears that we haven't spent a whole lot of the street maintenance budget, but what we did get done though in the last month is the paving. The asphalt work that the county had done is going to come out of this. It's going to fill up that number to get to right about $10,000 for the year. And then I feel a 10% increase there. Just looking at the costs that the county had and the work that we had done, and then looking out at some other streets that we could probably do next year, I think that going up to $11,000 is probably an appropriate number because we'd like to do another round. When Thad talks about the CIP, we've been kind of light for next year just because of we start paying on City Hall while we're also finishing off the 2003 bond. So the $10,000 spent here on some asphalt paving or some patching, I think you're gonna get 4 to 6 years out of that, but it's also worth that investment too. So this should be an adequate number to get us through 2017, and then for 2018 is what we'd be looking for more substantial road work, kick back into that. Under bridges and culverts, we have set aside a $500 line item here. I think that's an okay number to keep that there because there are some culverts that we maintain. If we have to take some time to check those out and potentially fix one, it would be all of $500 if we would have to do that. Street sweeping, we've set the $9,000 number the last few years based on the quotes that we have been receiving. I think it's appropriate to probably drop it down $500, just because I've been doing some research on other communities, what their rates are when they're getting a quote. I believe in the next month here, I'd like to start shopping that out for street sweeping for next year again. We've had TNC do the work in the past. That $9,000 has been based on what he's charged. But you'll also note that just this last weekend, we did get precision sweeping in to get some fall cleanup. And for some of the work they've been doing in other communities, it looks like it's cheaper than what we've been budgeting. So $8,500 might even be higher than what it might cost us next year to get 2 rounds of sweeping in.
Nice.
So I feel comfortable with that. We are down to the snow and ice removal. I can tell you that we've had $50,000 in the budget the last few years. It's just been $50,000. But our experience has been, we've hired the county to pick up 3 major roads, and it's been a lot cheaper. I think it's even been about 20% of what we were paying. So when we contracted with the county to pick up those extra streets, we were in the neighborhood of about $6,000 a mile for the year. And when we went with the county, they're billing us roughly $1,000 a mile. So there's a little bit of savings there. We've got the dump truck. We're not going to be plowing everything ourselves with that dump truck, but we should be able to do a little bit with it. But we would still need Fox. The county, Fox is still going to come clean out downtown if the snow comes real heavy. But the long and short of this is I cut that about $1,500, and I'll be honest, that's where we had come up with the extra money for weed control. So it's all public works related costs there. But I feel okay that the $48,500 is going to be a good number for snow removal. But when you're budgeting for snow removal, you can't predict the weather. It's you could save a bunch of money, you can blow it too. So we'll try to do the best we can.
Right.
Signs and markings, the $2,500 is roughly where we've been. We are doing some inventory roughly on street signs that are missing, stop signs and those types of things. So we're always going to have that need there. I think that the $2,500 is a comfortable number. Street lighting, I did put in a little bit of an increase there just because of our experience. So it's up to about $48,500. That's what we spend a year to keep the street lights on. But our experience has been a little bit higher than the $47,500 that's been budgeted. It's been closer to between 48 and 50. So sidewalks, we usually set aside $2,000. I had cut that to $1,000 for 2016. I think what we'd like to do, we haven't had a lot of sidewalk repair that we've had to get done. And if we've had to do repair, we've put it in with other construction projects. I think what we could probably do though is you could take a look at some, you could take an inventory per se, or I guess inventory, that's not the right word, but an inventory just to kind of look through your sidewalks, see if you've got any bumps, cracks, things like that. There's a couple of companies out there that have been calling, trying to solicit the work on that. I think if we've got $1,000 there, that might not be the worst thing to take a look at going into the spring. Maybe we can take an inventory there.
Treat it like a phaser and just go through and rate your sidewalks and figure out where the really bad ones are and,
Yeah.
you know, go
Yeah.
step by step.
Mm-hmm.
Or the heating machine, can't shovel it, you know, and that's broken up.
Down in the storm sewers, I believe that $1,000 is probably going to be okay there. I'm not sure why it's could be a typo for 5/15, 2016, because we've been right around $1,000 the last few years. When PLC was in this last month to do sanitary cleaning and televising, we did have them pick up a couple of Main Street intersections. So we had them at Harlan and Elizabeth, which is, knock on wood, we didn't have any flooding last year, but the last couple of years though, that storm sewer is pretty shallow, a lot of stuff that gets in there, and it's been freezing up and flooding. And so we did have PLC go through there and catch a couple of those intersections just to clean them out. So there will be an expense coming to storm sewers there. But that $1,000 is a pretty fair number, I think. Parking lots, we've set aside $250. The reality there is that I think our parking lots are to a point where we redid the one in the back, that was a big capital item. We talked last month about the parking lot at the IGA,
Right.
which probably needs some more attention, that's another capital item. But this would be like if there's any miscellaneous items that we would need to buy, $250.
We paint lines there too.
Right,
Be
right.
for that.
yeah. I'd have to check on that too, because of the paint when it comes through, we're probably just putting it through the street maintenance. But what we could do is, assess that over the parking lots if we're paint lines there. Recycling, we just have an estimate there because our contract with Harder's has it roughly at the CPI, whatever that raise is, more than 3%, but they roughly tell us 1.8 to 2.2, but where recycling increase would come in. So right here, what we're looking at is for 19,000, just increasing it to 19,400, that should capture any increase there. The yard waste site, we have $15,000 set aside there. I think that that's probably appropriate to keep that in that area. The reason why it looks like at $4,900 we haven't spent a lot is because we're anticipating a very large brush chipping, which is usually in the $6,000 to $9,000 range. The problem is in trying to get someone to get here to do that. We've talked about the last couple months too, that the more material you get, potentially you could get it done for cheaper. I don't know that, I don't want to plan on getting that lucky for next year, but hopefully as we look at potentially that other site across the street, that it might be more of a reality that we could stockpile this stuff. But there's a little bit more discussion to be had on that too. But for right now, I think $15,000 is fair. Basically what we're looking at there is the big John Deere tractor, that share of the lease. So we can usually split that about 2/3 to the yard waste site and 1/3 of that cost over to snow plowing. And so when it comes in about $7,500 to $8,000, 2/3 of that is usually in the yard waste site, and then on top of that we do like a chipping or something like that. Under weed control, we've had $500 set aside. Typically what we do is we charge, whenever we've had to go cut anybody's grass for code enforcement, we will charge it to this account, and then as people pay, we will take it out of this account too. But as Nick had mentioned last month, as we take a look at some more code enforcement, get a little heavier with cleaning up weeds there, cleaning them up in the right of way, there is a cost there to us, either to buy more chemical if we do it ourselves, or to hire Legacy Landscape if we would have him handle the chemicals and just get it done. That's the guy that we talked about for $29 an hour. He's got the chemical, he's got the chainsaw, and all he charges us for is his time. So that's really not a bad deal. His rate's gone up a little bit, but that's pretty much what we pay our guys. The benefits and everything, it comes out to about that amount. So it's not too bad to have a flexible extra set of hands there that is certified in applications and things like that. So we're looking at a $1,000 increase there. A lot of that, like I said, just to handle more of the weeds and get on some of the code enforcement issues, and anything that's in the right of way that we can handle, we would handle on our end too. I think there is one more line item, the garbage collection up on the top for Public Works. Like I mentioned, with Harder's, we're looking at 1.8 to 2.2%, somewhere in there for an increase. We've got just under 2%, get it up to $65,500 for garbage collection next year. So what we would have then for Public Works is a proposed 3.2% increase. In 2016, we had $281,825. 2017, we'd be looking at $288,450. These next couple sections, leisure activities, that usually goes to the rec committee or it's the library board. As it relates to revenues, we do have, I'll run over this real quick for you guys. We do have on curb and gutter here special assessments. So for some of the projects that we put out there, we put people on payment plans. So for Alfred Street, usually if they pay for their curb and gutters, what we had assessed, we also put in there any driveway expansions. So when we put people on a 5-year payment plan, usually as we start collecting, that's what comes out of this amount here. State road aid, which is one I had mentioned before, was $71,500 in 2016. That did drop down to $70,333 was the amount that had been certified by the state. It's dropped 2%. The recycling grant what they had done here, this is our section from the state, it's roughly $3,600 for last year in 2016. Initially, they had cut the funding, so they gave us a 2-year projection. They cut it, and I think we talked about this last year too,
Yeah.
but they cut it down from 3,600 for our share down to 3,000 with the intent that in the second year, which would be 2017, they'd bring it back up to full funding. And then what happened was, as the year got going, they decided that they were gonna make us whole for 2016 too. So they gave us the extra money. So in essence, they didn't really cut it that much. It's very interesting when the state does their budget though, and they say, in the first year of the state budget, we're cutting recycling, and then the second year, we're gonna bring it back up to whole. So makes it sound like we're getting a raise, but I think that's probably about it. Under the garbage, we've got charges for services, we do have the garbage fee, refuse collection, we haven't really changed that too much. That's been $13 a month for garbage. It's charged on all the utility bills, whether there's a home, whether it's vacant or not. But we're rated at about $105,000 there for that. I think that's about it for Public Works. Are there any questions at all?
Yeah, on the public works employees, what does that average out per hour per raise for them?
Right now, what we had said in there is that they do have their pay scale.
Yeah.
So there will be, we'll talk about this in closed session, we'll pick this up in closed session. We have one tonight. I wasn't sure with the council meeting how much time we'd have for this meeting. But the pay scale for the 2 less senior employees is still in force, whereas they get their water and sewer licenses,
Right.
they would rise up and get a raise then. But because of that scale being in place, we haven't given them a raise the last couple of years on January 1st. And last year we didn't do that because I think in the month or 2 prior to January 1st, they had just gotten their enhanced licenses. And my understanding with these 2 employees that are on that scale yet they had just within August and September had just gotten raises themselves.
Yeah.
So usually it's 25, 30, 40 cents depending on the scale. The 2 that we would have to talk about though would be for Don and also for Paul, because Don would be salaried employee that's off of that scale. And then in Paul's case, Paul is actually maxed out on the scale, because the scale was based on your water licenses, your sewer licenses. And so he's hit the top of that. Right now, the city council has not voted on a final percentage for raises for other people that are off of the scale. But I believe I had mentioned at a couple of these meetings that when we put the budget together, we had made sure that there was money in there for up to a 3% raise. But again, knowing that city council hadn't finalized that yet. So the money is there. I don't know that it changes between if it ends up being a 2%, 2.5%, 1.5%. It's not that much of a big swing that the budget isn't really that much impacted. If that makes sense?
Yep.
So for right now, the way the budget had been figured, you'll see that in the police budget too. We had thrown out for budgeting purposes, forecasting a 3%, because I'll leave it at that. I won't say, not that it would go any higher than that. I don't anticipate that it would be. Well, I anticipated that there would be enough funds set aside there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing I will just point out here, and it's probably more relevant for Public Works because a lot of the projects come through Public Works. You'll see at the bottom of the expenses here, I've got this highlighted in blue. The impact of paying City Hall, the first year for City Hall is in 2017, while we're also paying off roughly, I would say double for our debt service. So you'll see from 2016, we were paying $216,810. In 2017, we will be paying $311,593. Once we get to 2018, that will drop another 90,000, so that it's roughly $90,000 in extra expense, 95,000. And then for the capital budget, usually what we do is we set aside an amount to the capital improvement fund, which is where we usually get the monies to pay for these projects in the CIP. And I'm looking at a one-time decrease for 2017. This year we put $235,000 aside, sent it to the capital fund. I'm looking at a one-time decrease to 150 to that capital fund. And there's two ways you can look at it. One way is we're not setting aside as much money in 2017. The other side of that though is that the excess money that we're spending on debt service is technically on a capital item. So the money's still going towards our buildings and our projects. So the intent here would be going into 2018 would be to lift up this 150 back into the range of the 200,000 plus. So does that make sense? That there's a cut in the amount of money that we're setting aside, but it's really more of a shifting to say, rather than setting aside the money, setting the money aside for later, we're starting to just pay down the debt, starting on the city hall.
Right.
Okay. That's about all I've got. The water and sewer budgets, I would anticipate that we'll have that in December. Right now I've got a draft budget, but we're working with Ellers because Ellers is doing a water rate study. And they're also looking at our sewer rates based on acre-per flows for this year and fines and things like that. So we do have a draft pulled together, but I would anticipate that for December we'll have some better numbers probably to project from Ellers. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, if you would want to have a recommendation to approve the public works section of the general budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the public works section of the 2017 general budget.
Yeah, I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Yard waste site update.
As we're pulling together the capital improvement plan and we're looking at the budget, I can tell you that a lot of the budget and some of these other projects consumed quite a bit of time this last month. So we are taking a look at thinking internally on that potential to expand our yard waste site to go across the street. I did mention to you last month that we had the DNR audit last month.
Yeah.
That came through okay. It seems like we're doing okay according to the DNR yet. One of the things that they wanted us to watch a little bit closer is the temperature monitoring, which I mentioned, and also stormwater, storm runoff. The issue with the stormwater is that a lot of it just sits there and sinks into the ground, so it doesn't really run off. But as it relates to updates, anybody that's been there this last weekend and within the last week probably saw that we had a lot of leaves and things like that. We did have both the tractors out today scooping that. But the other thing that we had though was a gentleman just outside of town to the south basically came to us last year and brought his own little tractor, tried to scoop a lot of that fill because he's got a big cornfield with a kind of a bowl in the field. He's trying to get it filled in after the crops come off. And this year he had mentioned that he'd be willing to take more of the fill that was there, but if we had a tractor available a day or two, our tractor, our bucket's 5-6 times bigger than his, so any scoop we could do would take a lot of his effort and reduce that. And he basically cleaned us out of fill that was on site. And a lot of that stuff really wasn't compost grade stuff. I guess compost that you'd want to give away to anybody at all. But one of the things that popped up with the DNR audit though was that if you could find somebody like this that would be willing to land apply it, that as long as we kept track of who it was and had an idea of how much, we don't have to do temperature monitoring, don't have to do a lot of, I guess there's a lot of hurdles that get cleared. On top of that, while the leaf side was getting piled up, the back side where we've been storing this material was basically cleaned out I mean, to where there weren't any piles.
Mhm.
That's important because in the past, we've paid $5,000-6,000 to get that stuff trucked out. And in this case, I was more than happy to lend our tractor for an afternoon or two. Because they're gonna come take it. And he basically said next year, all the leaves and that, if we keep it turned and turn it into some kind of a material, that we could probably plan on that,
Nice.
which is really awesome. It's a really good thing. So we did have, and I was gonna say this in my report, but we did have a street sweeper that we contracted to come into town. We have him dumping out there, and it's a lot of leaves. Not a lot of dirt so much, but it's leaves, stuff like that. They were dumping out there as well. So
Good.
seems to be okay, but it's also been nice and dry and nice and warm lately too, so that helps. Especially with the airway side being all dirt and everything like that, it keeps it nice for people getting in and out of there. That's what all I've got right now, it's just update only on a lot of things happening over there.
When are we closing the yard waste site?
Usually it's been third week in November, but it's been okay.
So you're
I'd
gonna
like to
keep it
keep it
open?
open, play it by ear, just keep it open.
Okay, good. I was kinda hoping that, but I know we're getting about to that time where we
Mhm.
usually close it.
Yeah, no, it's been nice.
Yeah.
It's been real nice that we can get in and out of there. I won't jinx anything, but we'll keep it open until we can't keep it open with the weather.
Okay.
Okay.
Administrator report, operations supervisor report.
Yep, so on my end, it basically covered everything. We did have PLC in, cleaning. We had a kind of a goofy backup situation with an empty house on Ann Street, and we weren't able to really figure out what that was. So we had PLC come in, they did some cleaning, got the camera in. The problem with the cleaning and the camera is that if the lines are full of roots, when they put the camera in, they can't see a whole lot. But the problem with them cleaning it out first and then coming with the camera is that sometimes they might solve the problem there. So we think we've probably got it solved, that the home should be fine now. We've gotten a pretty good section of roots cut out. The plan was root cutting. PLC has basically said if you cut roots today, in 2 years they're gonna be growing just as far, just as far back. And we've kinda had that every other year plan. We did have them in there with the camera too, so that was a good thing. And like I said, we had them hit some of the storm sewers as well. We have the street sweepers in. Street sweeper thinks that he can probably lock us in for a long-term contract if we'd like to, but we will get quotes on that. There are some similar sized communities that are out there that I was able to see their bids from earlier this year. And a couple communities that are just a little bit smaller than us were getting quotes of like $6,000 for 3 full rounds of sweeping. Again, we've been in the $9,000 range for 2, if we can get a fall sweeping. But if anybody's seen the sweeper come through, they came in Friday afternoon. Did a pretty good job. They came in on Saturday. The problem is, and Jack left, but him and I had a little bit of a discussion that the street sweeper isn't here to be our curbside leaf pickup. They're here to get the street clean. We haven't had curbside pickup for maybe forever.
Right, never.
So I think there are some services that will come and pick up at the curb, but it's a little baffling that we get a lot of leaves at the curb. One of the things that I wasn't really thrilled about was I got a report that people were sweeping their leaves into the road once they knew the sweeper was coming. On top of that, I also got a note that the sweeper maybe stopped and invited people to do that too, knowing that he was coming, so I kind of coming and going on that.
Well,
But, I mean, I think in general, we've gotten a lot done here in the last month. There's been a lot of good stuff that's been happening. We had all the public works guys out, did a lot of tree trimming, things like that. And just basically getting ready for winter. That's about what I've got.
Just to kind of carry on, the guys have been out last week and they'll be out again this week finishing up the jetting. Like Pat was saying, PLC's been in town and got their stuff done, so we're gonna finish off to get our 50, so we get our 50% of the city done. That's our goal every year, is to clean 50% of the sewers in town. So guys will be out, they were out last week, they'll be out again this week, and maybe next week, as long as the weather holds, so we can get to our 50% goal. Valves all got turned hydrants all got done. So we're kinda gearing up for winter too. It's gonna be, we're getting the tractors ready and the trucks ready and getting things up and going. So it's really kinda all that there is. And if you guys wanna talk about the equipment list that I gave you, we can talk about that while we're doing this. If you wanna review it and talk about it next month, we can do that too.
Are your numbers on here, are they just numbered, or does it mean anything or not?
I think it's just.
They're just numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no real certain order to that.
You know, so then, before we discuss this, because it's 7:06 and we do have these people coming for the next meeting, I wouldn't mind seeing you prioritize this.
Okay.
You know, I see a lot of 94 on here, right?
Mhm.
So just as far as, you know, if this breaks, this is worse than that, you know, so we know which ones we should definitely be looking at. Okay,
Right.
you know, we got to get to this one before something happens.
Mhm. We can certainly make that happen for you.
And then we can discuss it next month, maybe when Keith is here, since he asked for it, and when we hopefully don't have another meeting right after that,
Yeah.
you know.
One of the topics maybe I'll point out, I won't say it to get it on the record so much, but if you look at number 8, that first sentence on number 8 is, you look at the type of work that we do there at the treatment plant and the sewer plant. We have talked about the fact that that building is not connected to the servers and things like that at City Hall, but we are looking into getting that protected and to get it up and maybe even more connected with the server, so.
I would say that would be like a very, very high priority,
Yeah.
just
Right.
given today's
Right.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't really want that on the record either, but yes, please
Yeah.
investigate that one.
Situation that we've become aware of that
'Cause
we're,
Luckily, that's something you can fix year round, so a lot of this stuff you're not gonna be doing in the winter time anyway.
right,
That'd be a fine time to take care of this one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then he does have a topic on here just related to the water department too, so when Don was looking through this list, that's what that last item is on. It's not just the treatment plant, but going into the water department too.
It's a good list, though. Appreciate it, a lot of
Yeah.
good stuff.
No problem. It was interesting to dig into some of the stuff too. It was-
You don't realize how old it is and whatever, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, or you think it's really old and then you realize it's not as quite as old as you think it is. But, yeah, no, appreciate the comment and, yeah, we'll look into it further and try to get that prioritized and get things listed on a need to do basis.
Perfect,
Alright. Thank you.
thank you.
Set December Public Works meeting, time and date.
I think typically we've gone with the second Monday, and I do believe that the finance committee, I think we set it for the second Monday as well. And, I mean, I'm indifferent on this, but I know the fire department usually has their December event on that first Monday.
Yep, thank you.
So, I think that's on the 5th, so if you wanna stack them both up on the 12th, that shouldn't be a big deal, I don't think.
That'd be nice.
Finance, Public Works.
Sure.
And probably with the finance, we'll be looking at some punch out finalization numbers, issues on City Hall. So it might not be the worst thing that we have both, if we're talking about both projects getting closed out and we have to add it both.
Yeah,
So December 12th, sound good?
yep.
Okay. 6:30 sounds good to me. Okay.
Such other meanders by authorized by law.
I don't have any.
Nope. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion say aye.
I guess that was a second.
Aye.
Aye.
Second it.
There you go. Got an aye. Okay, I got 7:10.